summer heat hung heavy over St. Charles County, Missouri on June 30th, 1999. Along a quiet rural field road near Route 367 in West Alton, a woman driving noticed something out of place amidst the ripening corn. Lying partially hidden by the foliage was the decomposing body. Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene around 1:12 p.m., confirming the grim discovery on Highway 94 North. The body, later identified through fingerprints as 41-year-old Ricky C. McCormick, was in an advanced state of decay, suggesting he had been there for several days. The location itself was suspicious, a remote area miles from McCormick's known residence, a place grimly known as a dumping ground for victims of foul play. But as investigators processed the scene, the case took a bizarre and unprecedented turn. Inside the pockets of McCormick's dirty lead blue jeans, they found more than just unusual random belongings. They found 2 folded pieces of paper covered in handwritten markings. These were not ordinary notes. They consisted of more than 30 lines of what appeared to be a complex, coded message. A bewildering jumble of letters and numbers, occasionally set off with parentheses. In the pockets of a murder victim lay a potential key to his demise, locked away in an unknown cipher. The discovery instantly transformed a suspicious death investigation into a profound cryptographic puzzle, one that would baffle experts for decades and become the central, enduring mystery of the Ricky McCormick case. What secrets did these cryptic lines hold, and could they lead investigators to his killer? To understand why these scraps of paper terrified investigators, we have to go back to where it all began, to the cornfield and the men they found there.
The scene that greeted St. Charles County Sheriff's deputies on June 30th, 1999, spoke volumes by itself. Ricky McCormick's body laid face down in a cornfield of Highway 94 North, Route 367, a remote part of northern St. Charles County. The location was significant. West Alton's desolate stretches between the Mississippi and Missouri rivers had earned a grim reputation as a convenient dumping ground for illicit activities and, tragically, for human remains. Authorities had found other bodies in the vicinity in preceding and subsequent years, including an alleged sex worker in 1995 and 2 nude women discovered by road crews just 300 yards away in 2001. McCormick's body was severely decomposed, consistent with estimates that he had been deceased for 3 to 5 days in the summer heat. He was wearing dirty blue jeans and a stained white t-shirt. The remains were in an advanced state of decay, leaving his hands severely deteriorated, and several fingertips found separated on the ground nearby. His remains weighed a mere 72 pounds. Despite the decay, authorities were able to positively identify him using fingerprints. The circumstances immediately screamed foul play. McCormick lived 15 to 20 miles away in the St. Louis area. He didn't own a car, and the rural field where he was found was not served by public transportation. There was no logical reason for him to be there on his own. Furthermore, no one had reported him missing, suggesting a life lived somewhat disconnected from daily routines expected by family or friends. Investigations found little physical evidence at the scene itself, leading them to believe McCormick was killed somewhere else and his body transported to the field for disposal. The St. Charles County Sheriff's Department requested the assistance of the Major Case Squad of Greater St. Louis, under the command of Major Tom O'Connor of the Maryland Heights Police Department. However, the advanced decomposition severely hampered the autopsy conducted by the St. Charles County Medical Examiner's Office. Pathologists could not definitively determine the cause of death, leading to an official ruling of undetermined. Some reports noted a possible head injury, but this could not be confirmed due to the body's condition. Despite the official ambiguity, investigators strongly suspected homicide based on the totality of the circumstances: the remote dumping location, the victim's lack of transportation, and the distance from his home. In the absence of clear physical evidence at the scene or definitive autopsy results pointing to a specific cause of death, the 2 handwritten notes discovered in McCormick's trouser pockets became the most significant pieces of evidence recovered. The investigation's focus inevitably narrowed onto the most unique and perplexing piece of evidence: the 2 coded notes found in McCormick's pockets. They were handed over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically their Elite Cryptanalysis and Racketeering Records Unit, CRRU, based in Quantico, Virginia, in the hope that deciphering them would unlock the case. The CRRU, renowned for breaking complex codes, including those used by German spies during World War II, took on the challenge, later collaborating with the American Cryptogram Association, a group of amateur and expert puzzle solvers. The task proved monumentally difficult. Dan Olson, a forensic analyst at the time, would later become the chief of the CRRU, became deeply involved with the McCormick notes shortly after he arrived in Quantico. Olson and his team employed a battery of techniques over the ensuing years. Olson himself spent 2 solid weeks initially attempting to crack the code, using everything from graph paper and pencil for manual analysis to state-of-the-art computer software for statistical breakdowns. They meticulously counted characters, searched for patterns, compared letter and number strings to St. Louis street addresses and maps across the country, but found nothing beyond coincidental hits. Despite the efforts of Olson and eventually approximately 15 to 20 different analysts within the CRRU, the notes remained stubbornly opaque. Standard routes of cryptanalysis seemed to have hit brick walls, Olson stated publicly. The FBI's standard 4-step process for code breaking, determining the language, determining the system, reconstructing the key, and reconstructing the plaintext, stalled at step 2. They couldn't figure out the underlying system McCormick or someone else had used. Yet the FBI remained convinced the notes were not random scribbles, a statement directly contradicting the McCormick family's assertions about Ricky's illiteracy. Also pointed to the non-random nature of the characters, the presence of patterns, and the frequent use of certain letters like E, possibly as a spacer, as indicators of a genuine, solvable puzzle. The Bureau held firm that breaking the code could reveal the victim's whereabouts before his death and could lead to the solution of a homicide. The notes' resistance placed them in a rare company. The FBI examines hundreds of suspected codes each year, and only about 1% of those deemed solvable ultimately go unbroken. The McCormick notes rose to become one of the CRRU's top unsolved cases, ranked alongside infamous ciphers like one from the Zodiac Killer. The investigation faced numerous hurdles. The decomposition limited forensic evidence. There were no witnesses to the presumed abduction or murder. The primary clue was indecipherable, and the conflicting accounts of the victim's literacy created fundamental uncertainty about the note's origin. The FBI felt that finding another sample of McCormick's coded writing, or even a similar system, might provide the necessary context for a breakthrough, but no such sample was ever available. To find that context, officials began to ask themselves, who are the people who may have wanted him dead? To be able to answer that question, we need to dive into who was Ricky McCormick.
Ricky C. McCormick was born on June 14, 1958, and his life was marked by instability and hardship. A high school dropout, McCormick drifted between various addresses in the greater St. Louis area, often living intermittently with his elderly mother, Frankie Sparks. He was unemployed at the time of his death, subsisting on disability welfare payments due to chronic health problems, and whatever he could earn from occasional odd jobs, mopping floors, washing dishes, or working as a busboy. He wasn't married, but he fathered at least 4 children. He had a prior record and had served 11 months of a 3-year sentence for being involved with an underage person. McCormick suffered from significant health issues, including chronic heart and lung problems. He preferred the night, known to family as a night owl, or even a vampire, for his habit of sleeping during the day and heading out at dusk, often working graveyard shifts when he could find them. It is McCormick's cognitive abilities and literacy, however, that form the core contradiction of this case. Multiple family members painted a picture of a man with significant limitations. His mother, Frankie Sparks, bluntly described him as retarded and stated unequivocally the only thing he could write was his name. He didn't write in no code. His cousin, Charles McCormick, noted Ricky often seemed in another world, possibly indicating some neurodivergency, and added that Ricky couldn't spell anything, just scribble. His aunt, Gloria Cookie McCormick, recalled a psychiatrist describing Ricky as having a brick wall in his mind, and noted his active imagination, perhaps as an escape from poverty. Family members remembered his usual behavior, his tendency to stand alone during school recess, and that he needed help filling out job applications. They seriously questioned his capacity to craft the complex notes found in his pockets, sometimes referring to his attempts at writing as nonsense. Yet, this portrayal clashes dramatically with the information provided by investigators and the FBI. Law enforcement sources and subsequent reports citing them indicated that McCormick had experimented with codes and ciphers since he was a boy. His mother reportedly told investigators during the initial inquiry that Ricky had indeed written coded messages as a child, but claiming that she did not know of their meaning or purpose. This assertion directly contradicts her later, more public statements about his inability to write in code. This paradox sits at the heart of the McCormick mystery, and honestly makes me very confused at the whole matter. Was he a man underestimated by his own family, possessing hidden cognitive depths and a lifelong secret fascination with cryptography? Or was the family's assessment accurate, rendering his authorship of the notes highly improbable, if not impossible? Also, the family themselves say that when he was a kid, he already wrote things in code in a way that they did not understand. So how can they really say later that he was not really capable of writing such cipher? If the family's later statements are true, it opens up disturbing possibilities. Were the notes planted by his killer? Was he forced to write them? Or did they belong to someone else entirely? This fundamental uncertainty about the victim, a marginalized man plagued by ill health and poverty, yet potentially the creator of an unbreakable code, defines the enigma and sets the stage for the investigation's long journey. The code, however, wasn't always the only lead. Eventually, information provided to the police led to the finding of very suspicious persons of interest. If you followed this case so far, you're already part of it. Hit subscribe, hit the like button, and join the search for answers. And come with me now as we jump into the people who could have wanted McCormick dead.
While the cipher refused to crack, investigators turned to something more familiar: people with possible motives. McCormick's girlfriend, Sandra Jones, told the police she suspected he was holding marijuana for a man named Baha Hamdallah. Ricky had worked odd jobs at a gas station on Chateau Avenue, where Baha and his brothers were known figures. One of them allegedly shot the other in a 1999 dispute, just weeks after Ricky's death. Charges were never filed. Baha's name had been linked to St. Louis gangs and drug trafficking. He was described as unpredictable and possibly violent. Ricky, on the other hand, was vulnerable, a high school dropout with severe health issues, no stable job, and a criminal record. It's not hard to imagine someone like him being used to hold or move something he didn't understand. And Sandra, someone close to him, believed that might have happened. But when pressed, even she admitted it was more of a gut feeling than hard proof. Police looked into Baha. He stayed on the radar for a time, but no public records suggest he was ever charged or fully cleared. And so, the thread went quiet. But there was another name, and this one carried weight. Gregory Knox was no low-level suspect. According to both St. Louis police and the FBI, he was a known drug trafficker. Some described him as a contract killer. An informant came forward, and their account was chilling. The informant claimed Knox had murdered a black man who worked at a gas station on Chateau Avenue and dumped his body on West Alton. The profile matched Ricky McCormick almost perfectly. It was a compelling story. Too compelling, in fact. But compelling isn't enough to charge someone with murder. The body was too decomposed for forensic proof. The tip could not be corroborated. There were no fingerprints, no surveillance, no second witness. So despite how tightly Knox seemed to fit, it didn't stick. He was eventually convicted in 2001, but only for weapons and drug charges, not for McCormick's death. Without evidence, without a confession, and without a way to break the code, every theory, every name, and every lead remained just that. The FBI had nowhere else to turn, so they tried something almost unprecedented. They asked the public for help. By March 2011, 12 years after Ricky McCormick's body was found, The FBI CRRU had exhausted its internal methods. Facing a persistent dead end on one of their most vexing unsolved cases, the Bureau took an unusual step. They went public. On March 29, 2011, the FBI released high-resolution images of the 2 handwritten notes found in McCormick's pockets. Appealing directly to the public, amateur sleuths, puzzle enthusiasts, cryptographers, anyone, for help in cracking the case. "We are really good at what we do," admitted CRRU Chief Dan Olson, "but we could use some help with this one." The hope was that fresh eyes might come up with a brilliant new idea, or that someone, somewhere, might recognize the unique system used. The FBI even provided basic cryptanalysis guidelines on their website to aid inspiring code breakers. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The FBI reported an outpouring of responses, receiving so many calls and emails that they quickly established a dedicated web page to handle the influx of tips, theories, and potential solutions. Thousands of people worldwide took up the challenge, captivated by the mystery of the murdered man and his cryptic legacy. While the public engagement generated renewed interest and led to 7 or 8 conversations about potential leads between the CRRU and local investigators in St. Charles County, it ultimately failed to produce the hoped-for breakthrough. No arrests were made, and no significant developments in the murder investigation emerged. The code remained stubbornly unbroken. This publicity also prompted a renewed reaction from Ricky McCormick's family, who, according to a 2012 report in the Riverfront Times, only learned about the specific existence of the notes when they saw them in news coverage stemming from the FBI's appeal, a staggering 12 years after his death. This revelation raises significant questions about the flow of information during the initial investigation. Were the notes initially dismissed by local police due to the family's statement about Ricky's illiteracy, only to be re-evaluated years later by the FBI? Or was there simply a breakdown in communication? Whatever the reason, the family, confronted with the images of the notes, doubled down on their stance. They reinforced that they never knew Ricky to write in code, describing his writing as nonsense or scribble, and expressed serious doubts about his ability to create such intricate texts. The public appeal brought the McCormick case out of the cold case files and into the global spotlight. It generated countless hours of analysis and speculations online and off. Yet, despite this collective effort, the core mystery, the meaning of the notes and their connection, if any, to Ricky McCormick's death, remained unsolved. Despite the FBI's public appeal in 2011 and the subsequent flood of public interest, no verifiable solution to the code has emerged, and no arrests have been made in connection with the homicide. The conflicting narratives surrounding McCormick himself further complicate the picture. Was he the functionally illiterate man described by his family, making his authorship of the complex notes seem impossible? Or did he possess a hidden aptitude for codes, unknown even to those close to him, as investigators seem to believe? The potential connection to drug trafficking, involving figures like Baha Hamdallah and Gregory Lamar Knox, offers the most concrete, although unproven, theory for a motive. The informant's account linking Knox to a murder closely matching McCormick's circumstances is particularly compelling. However, without the notes being deciphered to potentially corroborate names, locations, or transactions, these remain strong suspicions rather than actionable evidence. Ultimately, the Ricky McCormick case endures as a chilling enigma precisely because of the notes. They represent both the tantalizing possibility of answers and the profound frustration of an unbreakable lock. So what do you think? Was Ricky McCormick hiding a secret life, or did someone else write the code that still haunts investigators today? If you have a theory, I would love to hear it. Drop it in the comments down below. And if this case pulled you in, please subscribe, because the next mystery might be even harder to decode. Next time, in the heart of sunny Boca Raton, Florida, where palm trees swayed beside upscale storefronts, a series of brutal crimes unfolded in chilling silence. 3 seemingly unrelated victims, all abducted near the same shopping mall, were later found murdered, or never found at all. Each crime shared haunting similarities: victims taken in daylight, no signs of forced entry, cars returned, wallets untouched, bodies left in remote areas, but no arrests were ever made. From a mother and a daughter found executed in their SUV to a missing woman whose body has yet to surface, the crimes painted a disturbing pattern that law enforcement suspected could point to a serial predator. Would the authorities be able to shield the population and find this killer? We find out on the next episode. Hope to see you there.